Practice of Brahmacharya or continence. Next point is sex control at the mental level. However, through physical means alone, one can never control sex, which has its roots deep within the personality structure. The most important point is to tackle the problem at the mental level. We find that imagination plays a dominant role in our life. Apart from sex fantasies, subtle shades of sex get mingled with our ordinary thinking. Though Freud undoubtedly exaggerated the role of sex in a normal man's life, there really exists some connection between sex and the imaginative faculty in men. This connection often gets stronger through wrong associations, and as a result, many people find themselves imagining the wrong sort of things. There is nothing to get upset about all this, provided one keeps oneself physically aloof from all objects of temptation. Still, wrong imaginations and guilt feelings are a great source of torture to so many aspirants. But brooding only makes the problem worse. The problem of imagination has to be tackled in a systematic way. The main point to note is that the mind should never be allowed to form wrong pictures and brood over them. This is possible only by the practice of producing counter thoughts. This is what Patanjali advises us to do in his Yoga Sutra. To obstruct thoughts which are inimical to yoga, contrary thoughts should be brought. This is an important technique of great help to spiritual aspirants. By constantly thinking good thoughts, the whole old bad thought structure can be changed. We may be near a bad or impure thing physically, but at the same time can be very far from it mentally and psychically. In order to remain unaffected, we should raise a strong mental barrier to insulate ourselves on the thought plane. But this is not enough. It is a negative process. We should bring in a positive factor also. That is, we should think of the divine or of some holy personality most intensely, filling our whole mind with that thought. Draw yourself away physically and mentally, and then give your whole mind and attention to the divine alone. And do not allow it to stray away towards the object of temptation. Do not allow yourself to go near it either physically or mentally. Then, in a very easy and natural way, we learn to draw ourselves away from the things and persons that tempt us, to raise a strong barrier between them and us, and to remain unaffected. Physical nearness is not the only danger. The person who tempts us may be far away physically, but we feel a tremendous attraction for him or her on the thought plane. So, even when the person who attracts us or the object that tempts us is only on the thought plane and not physically near, we should do exactly and scrupulously what we are told to do on the physical plane. That is, we should in no way communicate with that person, but should dissociate ourselves mentally from him or her. Draw our mind away from all thoughts connected with the object of temptation, and raise a strong barrier or even a feeling of loathing or disgust for that person. And after having done that, we should see that we give all our thoughts and feelings to the divine alone. Creating a strong dislike or disgust for the object of temptation is not the ultimate solution, but in many cases, it proves to be very helpful as a stepping stone to the sublimation of feelings and desires. And so, it should be made use of. It is a very vital point to do this consciously, deliberately, in a systematic way. At the same time, one may do more of japa, practice more meditation and prayer, repeat some elevating passages, even if the mind is divided or is in a state of unrest, even if there is a terrible tug of war going on in the mind. Somehow or other, in the case of all aspirants, a strong countercurrent of spiritual thought is to be raised. Practically speaking, all our troubles are more mental than physical, and unless there be mental troubles, there can never be any physical ones. Unless something in us responds to the outer stimulus, whatever it may be, there can be no object of temptation. So, the defect lies in us more than in others. If we are not able to create the higher mood as soon as the trouble arises, we should first draw ourselves away from the person or object of temptation and then try to create that mood. There should be a conscious, deliberate cutting off in all such cases. Those who are always in a higher mood will experience less temptations. It is only when a man forgets God or his higher self and dwells on the worldly plane that temptations come upon him frequently. Always keep a good stock of holy imaginations and ideas so that you can use them as weapons the moment any undesirable thought or feeling arises and tries to find some expression on the mental or physical plane. Suppose a person attracts you, raise at once a very intense counter picture. Imagine that the person is dragging you down and think at the same time strongly of your wisdom or chosen ideal, setting the picture of your wisdom against that of the other person. Thus, it becomes easier to evade the subtle charm of the object of temptation and to change the thought and feeling regarding it. But one should love one's chosen ideal intensely. Those who love God intensely are not easily affected by the charms of physical beauty and sex. Another effective way is to merge all forms that rise in you into the light of yourself, which is always shining in you and which forms your real nature. Temptations can take place only in the dark regions of the unconscious mind. Direct the searchlight of the Atman into all these shadowy areas. All the hideous images that lie crouching there will vanish in the brilliance of the self. Bring all submerged forms into the focus of higher consciousness, and you will see that they vanish at once. Consciousness has such a tremendous power, but few people care to do this. You see, the whole trouble is this: our images have acquired reality. We forget that images are only images. Each image becomes, as it were, a real person and haunts us. We should learn to deflect these images and deprive them of life. In the beginning, this may be difficult. Then we have to bring in another good image in order to counteract the bad ones. But the technique of deflecting the image must be learned by all one day or other. When you feel drawn towards a person, if you can regard him or her as a mere shadow, as something unsubstantial, then the charm and influence he or she has on you will disappear, and the fight would become a very easy one. But generally, the attraction is such, and our consciousness so confused and full of wrong notions, that we do not even want to do this in most cases. Next point is more practical suggestions for sex control. Be conscious of your higher centers. Hold onto your higher center of consciousness in the heart or head. Then you will find that you are on a higher plane than the person or object that tempts you. You are caught only when you calm down. You must always remain on a higher plane. Any kind of strong temptation is preceded by a fall in consciousness. First, you fall down from a higher level yourself before you fall into the hands of others. So, hold on to the higher center always. When you feel your mind going down, say to it, come up. Why stay in the lower centers? Try to cajole it. My mind, what a fool you are to run after enjoyments and sex. Are not you ashamed to do it? You should really know better. Treat your mind as a friend. Never create any enemy within. You must make your mind your companion and collaborator in spiritual life. Sometimes, especially in the case of persons who cannot do higher forms of visualization, it is better to do some imagination of human anatomy. Haven't you seen the human skeleton in a museum or a laboratory? Instead of the beautiful form that draws you, you should see the skeleton, the bone structure with its stupid grin. If you wish, you may add blood, entrails, nerves, and other disagreeable things to this skeleton. This is not a false imagination after all. It is the truth about the human body. Only we have forgotten this truth. We have got accustomed to seeing only the skin. Even doctors who know everything about anatomy forget this truth. The most effective means of overcoming the attacks and attractions of sex is to look upon oneself as the Atman, the self. We should change our attitude towards ourselves and towards others. We should try to look upon ourselves in a different and truer way. Say to yourself again and again, I am not a man, I am not a woman. I am not the body, I am the self. I am infinite consciousness and bliss, not limited by any attributes. I am not this physical form with which I happen to be associated for some time. I am sexless, etc. If we are able to bring about this change in our outlook and really come to feel it, then our position becomes secure. Drive this idea into the depths of your mind at the time of your meditation, early in the morning and also before going to bed. At first, these appear to be mere suggestions, but repeated practice will make this idea a part of your outlook and influence your thinking and actions. By constant thinking in a certain way, a habit is created, and once this is done, everything else becomes easy. And this thinking can be done very effectively and without any great strain if one tries to rise to a higher plane of consciousness. Just take the example of the baby kangaroo. Whenever there is any danger, it just jumps into its mother's pouch. Your center of consciousness should be for you even as the mother's pouch is for the baby kangaroo. Try to be with your stomach at the higher center the very moment any trouble arises, and then you are safe. Do not cause any unnecessary reaction by acting in too violent a way. The moment you let go the hold on your stomach, you allow your mind to calm down and feel the worldly attraction, and then you are lost. Learn to connect all your thoughts to your Ishta Devata. Those who love their Ishta Devata intensely will not be troubled by lust. The inability to love the ideal, which seems so abstract, is one of the main causes of difficulty for people in the observance of strict Brahmacharya. When we are struggling with our senses and some outward attraction or mental picture, we should have several weapons at hand for use. Never rely on one weapon alone. Japa, repeating some holy passage or prayer or intense and one-pointed visualization of a holy personality, rhythmic breathing, company of holy people, production of counter thoughts. Any one of these could be utilized as the occasion demands. Next point is change of consciousness, the ultimate solution. What we have discussed above about continence is meant for the beginner in spiritual life. These preliminary practices are necessary until the aspirant is able to go deeper into the problem. The ultimate solution, however, lies in the transformation of consciousness. Sex consciousness is only a part of body consciousness, and unless this body consciousness is overcome, perfect continence in thought and deed is difficult. Unless the aspirant experiences spiritual awakening and his physical consciousness is changed into supersensuous awareness, the sex idea will persist in some form or other. The Anahata Chakra or the heart center must be awakened. One should experience the bliss of supersensuous light. The craving for pleasure, which is at the root of the problem of sex, vanishes when this bliss of spiritual experience is enjoyed by the aspirant. In the case of the brahmacharin or celibate, all other desires get some kind of satisfaction, but the craving for sex is not satisfied. This problem can be solved only when he experiences the bliss of the heart lotus. When the heart center awakens, one sees the light of the self. In the glory and splendor of this light, the beauty of physical body and sense cravings disappear. This is the only way to overcome the fascination for women that many men feel. When the aspirant comes down from that higher experience, the memory of that exalted state will linger in his mind and will protect him from earthly temptations, which then appear trivial and paltry. He then craves only for spiritual bliss instead of sense pleasures. So, the problem of continence is directly connected to the larger problem of spiritual experience. The main concern of the aspirant must be how to get spiritual experience, how to transform his physical consciousness, how to open the higher center, how to keep the mind on a higher plane, etc. When this supremely important quest occupies all his mind and grips his imagination, the problem of sex will dwindle and fade away. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.